Hey, how's it going, everyone? Thanks for joining me on another episode of Best and Worst Track of the Week. My name's Josh, and this episode of Best and Worst Track of the Week is going to cover the Best and Worst Track of the Week, covering the week of September 5th. If you're new to Best and Worst Track of the Week, all it is I cover the new entries into the Billboard Hot 100, review all of them with the letter grade, and then also pick one that's the worst, pick one that's the best. That's all it is. And just before we get started, I want to let everyone know that there is a new album review covering the latest album by Bully, Sugar Egg. That album I thought was pretty good. I wasn't much of an avid listener of Bully. If you're interested in any like indie or punk rock, leaning indie rock with some, angsty vocals, go ahead and check that review out and check that album out as well. And then, let's go ahead and get started. So overall, in this week's Billboard Hot 100, I thought it was a pretty interesting week overall, especially compared to the last two. The last two kind of just had cliche, I guess, moments on there. A lot of emo trap rap with clean guitar instrumentation, a cliche country new entry coming in. And not to say there wasn't good things that came out of those weeks, but I just thought there was more things of interest that happened. Number one being that there's a new number one coming in this week by BTS. They dethroned WAP by Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. And also the Drake track, Laugh Now, Cry Later, which in retrospect is kind of it's a little bit of a scary track. I don't know why I think it's scary, but it's kind of like, is Drake, are you about to kill someone pretty soon? Because if you are, just don't do it. But anyways, that track, Laugh Now, Cry Later, went down to number 3. Be Like, and then another interesting, a number of interesting things also came about, like Be Like That by Kane Brown, Sway Lee, and Khalid keeps on going up. At this point, it's 26. It's almost at the top quarter of the charts. I don't think it's going to slow down. That got Worst Track of the Week one week, and the general consensus thinks that I'm wrong on that. Whatever. The next thing is that Seven Summers by Morgan Wallen fell really hard at 38. I didn't expect that to go down that far. He's kind of like the next up-and-coming thing right now, so maybe he'll come up next week, but it's possible it might not. And then the other thing, last week's Worst Track of the Week, Heather by Conan Gray, went up 11 spots to 50. I don't know, guys. If this is going to keep on going up, I mean, it's good in a sense that, you have some sort of contrast. It's a different white guy with acoustic guitar music other than Louis Capaldi on the Hot 100, but I don't know. That song's still not for me. And then, of course, we revisit our running, good old AJR Bang. It's still going up. Unfortunately, it's still going up to 64. It's a slow race for AJR, but they're going up. And then another thing is that they slowed down, or they actually went down the week before. So I don't know what's happening. Is it cold feet with the charts with them? I don't know. But yeah, let's get into the new tracks of this week and what I thought of them. The first track that came in was Spicy featuring Fivio Foreign and ASAP Rocky. ASAP Ferg, actually, by Nas. This came out at 96. This track is off of Nas's new album, which I've kind of had, some reluctance to review. I don't think I will at this point. I should review more hip-hop, though, but nonetheless, this track, I had to look up who Fivio Foreign is. I know he was on a track with Drake on his latest mixtape that I covered. I still don't really know about this guy. He's obviously the weak link on this track. ASAP Ferg is almost miles ahead of him. The Nas verse is good as well, but I think this track is brought down by Fivio Foreign. And I kind of had to look up really what's his MO, and he did kind of just have a breakthrough hit titled Big Drip. last year. I thought it was interesting. He's part of the drill beat scene, probably, because that song is decent. I liked it when I listened to it. But yeah, I think on his other features, he kind of just doesn't really come through as strong. The track itself is heavily piano reliant. It's weirdly similar to like a track off of the last Run the Jewels album, the one where it's like ah wee wee. I like Nas's flow. There's some very subtle, soft percussive elements and tones in the track. Fivio Foreign, like I said, he's not a very natural fit. He's the weak link. Ferg seems to fit it a lot better. He's more dominant in the track. He has a better rhythmic flow. Overall, I thought this track was okay. I gave it a B. The next track was You Broke Me First by Tate McRae at 95. I'd say this track in itself probably made the whole entire week more interesting than the last maybe like month. Tate McRae, if no one's familiar with, is kind of like an up and coming artist that is, I'd say, of the record labels pushing out Billie Eilish clones, because this is music that is obviously here to it's here to compete with Billie Eilish, but I don't like the word compete. I'd say it's more here to serve record labels answer to Billie Eilish. I'll say this right here with Tate McRae. She's not a bad vocalist. I don't know how doctored her voice is, but her tone is a combination of like Billie Eilish and Tones and I, which I'd say the Billie Eilish comes in more, but the Tones and I part is not a compliment. She's just has a little bit of like a higher squeakiness to her, but the instrumental on this track it's purposely meant to be like overly dark, and it's a forced moodiness. It kind of has a bit of a Halsey aesthetic, like some singles that Halsey released a few years ago. I'm not gonna go back and remember the album, but to me it kind of brings me back to like that track where she was like in a music video where she was in a car and she was like supposed to be like some sort of like gang member. I don't know. I don't remember the name of the track. But anyways, the Tate McRae track, there's some colorful vocal effects used. There's a synth instrumental that's quite overly simplified. Sounds like it's been used before somewhere else. I have a feeling that she'll become kind of massive. I think it's almost inedible at this point. She might need another hit or two, but she might also falter if the society doesn't really seem too keen to more Billie Eilish clones coming out. But I think the future might be bright. I gave this track overall a B-. The next track came in at 79. It's Hawaii by Maluma. I think this is the first time I'm touching Maluma on here, and overall, I am somewhat of a proponent or fan of Maluma. I think he has a nice mix between being a Latin pop star that sings in the reggaeton world, but he can also sing a great ballad here and there and kind of just like do his own thing. He's not overly drenched or enveloped in reggaeton aesthetics. This track, unfortunately, is that it is completely soaked in the reggaeton aesthetics, and not in a good way. This almost got worst track of the week. I think it's a pretty below average song from Maluma. Usually would expect more from him. There are some positives on here though. There's a bit of a sparkly introduction with bright keys and embellished guitars. Overall, the thing that bothers me is the skeletal production used here, the prominent hot kick drum in the mix, especially on the chorus. It just dominates everything, and it's annoying. And everything else is just kind of bare. There's some vocals on here, some sight guitar tones, and some auxiliary percussion. I'm just not a fan of how it all sounds together. There are some nicer moments that save the track, like in the bridge outro thing where it's more subdued. There's like a change of character, kinda. But overall, I thought it was kind of below average for Maluma. I gave this one a C. And the next track, it's kind of a short week. We're already almost to the end. Dynamite by BTS. is the number one track of the week, and overall I thought it was decent. And I don't think I've ever talked about BTS on here. I don't think I've talked about... I've talked about K-pop, I'm sorry, but female K-pop groups like Blackpink. Yeah, BTS, they kind of need no explanation. If you've just been conscious the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 years or so, they're the biggest K-pop group in the world, I'd say. They have millions of teenage girls all around the world that love them, and they're kind of just scary massive. But this is their first breakthrough hit in the charts in the US, so it's kind of a historical moment. I think it's historical too in the sense that this is the first international artist to debut at number one or get a number one hit, something along those lines. Overall, the BTS thing, it has a lot of like characteristics. They're not boring by any stretch of the imagination. They have members on there that are very good singers. They have members that can pull off a rap verse. They usually have some pretty flashy instrumentals in production. I am in no way, shape, or form a connoisseur of K-pop or their music, so take my opinion of this track, Dynamite, with a grain of salt. I'm not a fan overall of the clap track that buries the snares in this track. And then also like later in the track, there's this vocal harmony build-up thing in the bridge that just sounds overly synthetic in the voices. But I do like the smooth, funky bass line in the mix. It's almost Jamiroquai-like in the production, or just like the overall performance of that bass. It kind of makes me feel nostalgic, like another moment in time in pop that this would have been popular like in the 2000s. And there's a nice big moment with a key change. Overall, the track is just overly charming and overly pristine. It just kind of has that surface levelness to it. But overall, I thought it was a good track. I gave it a B-. And we are to the point where we do the worst track of the week. This week, it wasn't very hard for me to pick what is going to be the worst track of the week, even though I almost gave it to Maluma. The worst track is All In by YoungBoy, Never Broke Again. That came in at 90. This is just regurgitative, like, trap, clean guitar instrumental stuff with almost no personality or distinction. It sounds like a bad Young Thug interpretation almost, with just a lot less charisma and no higher register crooning and little to no presence. The track has little payoff on the part where I think would be the chorus. It's just kind of blends in with everything else, and it's just overly whiny, and it just doesn't have much payoff. It's a static song, unenthusiastic, forgettable. I had to give it worst track of the week. But just so we leave off on a good note, we do have the best track of the week goes to The Plan by Travis Scott, which is super uncharacteristic of me to be praising Travis Scott, but this is a killer track. I mean, you're immediately hit with this track with like an uncomfortable, dirty, pulsing beat. This is one of the more tasteful performances I've heard Travis ever do, especially when that crooning auto-tune comes in. The melody that kind of just goes over everything is like, it's natural and it's performed well. It could maybe be mistaken for like a Kanye track with like some of the stylistic, I guess, characteristics of it. And that like heavy synth line comes in and out in like times when you kind of like don't expect it, but when it does, it just feels right. It features some nice rapped flows at times by Travis Scott. If there's one thing I would have a knock about on Travis Scott is that I don't think he's technically a very good rapper, but on here I kind of see more of like the talent that he has. Overall, there's some lush moments that are created on this track with these synth strings. It's very moody, it's dark, and I kind of dig it. I don't know if this is kind of a one-off track. I know it's for a movie, but if he's able to pull a project where there's more of this stuff, I would be so into that. So that's best track of the week. The Plan, Travis Scott. Kind of a short week. But yeah, if you stuck around with me to the end of the episode, thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to the podcast. I do appreciate you guys. And yeah, take care of yourselves. I'll be covering some more stuff soon.